So I believe that we're shifting to a new earth and a better way of being, a better way of life. It's a dimensional shift, and there's a split that's happening, a kind of bifurcation, and humans get to decide what happens, both individually and collectively. Hello and welcome to this space. My name is Dana Mia Cohen. I talk about worldview, conscious living, and shifting to a new earth. In this particular energy reading, I want to talk about the present environment. So in everyday life, when we look at crowded places like the cities, and when you stop and you just slow right down and look around and see what people are like, I notice that the majority of people are not in such a good state, very sadly. Many seem to be hollowed out and lack just basic social interaction. People seem to be suspicious and unfriendly. They don't communicate, and they also seem to ignore each other. This is the case on the street, in everyday life, in workplaces, socially. So perhaps this is due to isolation and too much social media and also phone addiction. There's an insanity also around, a kind of aggression, an unpleasant spirit. And what I mean is, for instance, if you go onto the roads and you drive, you see that people, they're aggressive, they lack patience. And I sense that something really has changed and shifted over the last 5 years. Again, this aggressiveness and a mean spirit that seems to have taken hold. There are, of course, also very positive people. This isn't everyone, but the majority seem to be this way. They seem empty. See, there's a spectrum. It's not black and white, but they seem empty. Some are unpleasant and even quite aggressive and nasty. People also seem to be zombified, as if they're running on some kind of program. There's a general loss and a decay, a moral decay also in the air. The level of narcissism in humans is very high, and most people seem to be infected with that virus, so the narcissism virus. They're empty when it's like this. When we talk about narcissism, it's an emptiness and a kind of self-obsessive behavior. On the negative end of the spectrum, they're quite vampiric and just want to take, use and drain others. Majority, maybe 80%, are towards this end, this more narcissistic side. There are also very, very good and decent people, but they seem to be in a minority, sadly. Having said this, the positive are a strong and powerful minority. And this is very important. There does exist a societal division. It's as if spiritually and energetically choices are being made and there's a separation into different groups. I do refer to a bifurcation, a kind of division to two groups, but there are really more groups than just two. Just as an aside, the big virus of 3 to 5 years ago, the virus that I'm talking about, that wasn't the real problem. The real problem, the true virus, was the virus of narcissism. This is the mind virus. From a spiritual perspective, you have these different divisions, again, these different groups, and it's almost as if people can't see or hear people in the other groups. They may see to some degree, but there is a distance, there's a huge divide that's happening. So now I want to go to the subject actually of the virus and the pandemic and the aftermath of this. So now we see more and more data surfacing from the science about, the injections that were taken and the side effects and the damage. And there were many people, many of us knew this anyway right from the beginning, but now this is surfacing in the knowledge base, in the science, but nearly nothing is said in the legacy media and even on, alternative social media. There are those who are speaking up about it, but very, very little. So again, despite the fact that more and more information is coming forward, it's almost as if this is suppressed and ignored and pushed aside. But those who are aware and those who have been aware, they know anyway. They just know. We always knew. One of the things that has come to light very recently is that in the past, so 5 years ago and before that, the data on cancers was 1 in 3 people at some point would unfortunately get a cancer. Again, that's not something I want to say. It's very, very unfortunate, but that's the data. That's just the scientific data from, again, 5 years and prior to that. But now that's shifted and changed, and in many places it's 1 in 2 people who have or will get cancer at some point in their lives. Again, that's a huge difference, massive difference. Death rates have gone up. This seems to be unaddressed. The reason for it, the very obvious reasons, the possibility that it could be the so-called medication, those injections, that's largely swept aside, swept under the rug. And of course, there are many other troubles in the world. There are many other troubles politically, economically. So this has been cast aside. But that reality, that truth is coming up. The tremendous corruption of big pharma is also surfacing, and it's becoming very, very clear. Many have known about this for a long time, but it's becoming more and more mainstream knowledge and understanding. Then there's the wrong and the damage of the lockdowns, which were so draconian and so fear-based. This too is surfacing and is coming up as part of a holistic view on the world and what is happening now and what has happened. The current situation is very much affected by the last 5 years, of course, and the lockdowns, the so-called medications, and the damage caused there is very, very profound, and this is being experienced currently. On the economic front, there's the inflation post the pandemic. So of course, locking down entire countries, entire nations for such a prolonged period, in a sense, people are paying for that now. And in addition to that, in many places, government policy is also destroying things economically. Part of that is the agenda of the environmental agenda of low carbon footprint and hiking up and increasing energy bills. This is also causing tremendous economic damage. Now, I'm all for cleaning up the environment and changing things for the better. We need to become less consumeristic, right? So have less consumerism, have more mindful consumerism, more mindful production. I'm all for having a clean environment, improving things, moving towards sustainable energy. But the way in which this is being done is tremendously damaging economically and socially. So when it comes to world leaders and the politics, we see the surfacing of truth, of the tremendous corruption that is in that space. Now, the corruption isn't new. It's just that it's been intensified as the truth has to come to the surface. The truth surfacing is a spiritual imperative. It has to happen in order for shift to happen. So for humanity to really change things, as opposed to the things being behind a mask, hidden and under the surface, when that is the case, we can't have real change. So when we're looking at a shift to a higher dimension, a higher way of being, what I call a new earth, the different spiritual traditions have different names for this, but in order for this to take place, the truth has to emerge. And one of the very difficult and painful ways in which this happens is that we see just how negative and even evil some of the politics has been. There are also those resisting really the release of the old ways. This makes things, compounds it, makes it that much harder. And so when politicians and leaders, some of them that are positive and they're really genuine and they want to make a difference, when they try to bring about policy change and shift things in a good way, a good direction, things are made really virtually impossible for them. They're being targeted and fought, and doors are slamming, in their faces. Again, they're being stopped at every pass. This is happening in many places globally. I want to point out one example in the UK, which is with, for example, Liz Truss, who was Prime Minister in the UK for a very short time. I believe that she may have been one of the best people to lead this country, with her vast experience and very positive, very pro-human, pro-life, very positive ideas. But she didn't stay long as Prime Minister, and she couldn't, as she realised very quickly that the democracy was compromised. Now, she speaks about this, she speaks about it in the alternative media. And similar turmoil, I think, is being observed in the US and in other places as well. We see that the media in the West, the media that is supposed to be independent, supposedly, and is supposed to be fair and honest in its reporting, is lying and selectively suppressing huge events, huge issues, putting out propaganda. And this too is becoming very clear, and people are shifting away from the legacy media for that reason. And more people are, of course, moving into the alternative spaces. But even within the alternative spaces, there's a suppression of free speech and a suppression of really the truth and the reality surfacing. So this is a very, very hard time from that perspective. Again, this is all a symptom, and it's all part of that shift and the resistance to the shift to the new way of being. We have wars that are happening, and extreme ideologies that are surfacing as well. So there's a turmoil that's happening prior to and in the process of shifting. I really believe that these wars and the turmoil are not necessary. Humanity has two possible paths to the light. Two possible paths. One path is a path of positive steps that flow towards a completely new way of thinking and a new way of being. And we have that in our potential. There is a possibility for that. And the other path is a harder path, if you will, a path where there'll be turmoil and war. Both lead to the same place. I'm very, very optimistic. I do believe that we are heading towards an elevation, an ascension, if you will. We are heading towards the light. The question only is, which path will we take? Okay, and it would be better, I think, to take the best possible path to that new reality, that shift in dimension. And it's unnecessary for us to engage in wars, but it's a collective decision. As long as the majority of humans are in a more negative position and are caught up in aggression, anger, hate, fear, and I have to say fear is deeply at the root of all this. The more humans shift away from that into a state of balance, into a state of love, compassion, kindness, justice, and peace. So the more humans shift into that space, the path to that ascension will change. And we're going there regardless. This is happening. Okay, it's a choice, a personal choice and a collective choice as well. What we're seeing is coming to the surface is radicalism and extremism, and this is actually a huge challenge. It's a challenge for humanity, individually and collectively. The extremism and radicalism, totalitarianism, these negativities, they're coming forward to allow humans to choose. This is very, very important. If people can see clearly an ideology and a movement, they can decide whether to align to it or not. And they can choose in accordance with their inner being, what is truly in their mind and in their heart. And this is a type of revelation as well. Okay, there's a revelation happening on planet Earth. And that's also why there's so much turmoil and chaos. So in a sense, that radicalism and extremism, it does serve us, okay? That extremism can be political, it can be religious, ideological, and it's always off kilter and imbalanced, deeply rooted in hate, in fear, really fear at the core of this. We're seeing a fragmentation of the civilization. Why? Because, well, anyway, we have to shift. We need that completely new way of thinking, a new way of being. That's happening. That has to happen. So again, we can either take the path of more unity, a rapid, hard work to elevate, how should I put it, like that path which is more positive, more in flow, or unfortunately it would be fragmentation. So either it's transference and rapid shift to a new civilization, or it's a fragmentation of the existing in order to create the new. It would be better to take the smoother and more loving path. Much better. And that's part of the reason I'm making these types of videos as well. At the moment, everything is upside down. Many inversions are happening. One example is a leftist political movement and the woke movement, which supposedly support equality, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, anti-chauvinism, etc. They're all for equality. Many human beings who are joining these types of movements, they have truly good intentions, yet at the same time, these intentions are being twisted and perverted and used against people. So whilst this movement claims to be a certain way, it is precisely the opposite of what it purports to be. It is more discriminatory, more racist, and more cruel than anything we, have seen. I wouldn't say ever, because there have been some very negative, very dark movements and dark ideologies on the planet, but it is definitely aligned with those. And we see that in the extreme movements, they're aligning with radicalism, with all kinds of other very dark ideologies, I would say. It's hateful and is also I see it as anti-civilization. I'm not criticizing or judging individuals, by the way. I think that many people are coming from a good place and a good heart, but there's a little bit of a misalignment, I'm going to say, with discernment, with really going inward, judging correctly. I don't mean judgy, I mean more discerning correctly, going inward, tuning in, and really sensing what the balance is. Also, for example, I'm just using one example, the leftist extreme movement, the woke movement, has partnered up with radical extremists, terrorists, murderers. They seem to align these causes, and they're aligned with haters and people who would destroy their own freedom, including gay rights, women's rights, freedom of speech, and many other liberties that, they currently have. And they formed this most bizarre, I would call it an unholy alliance with radical totalitarian movements. I don't want to, again, judge individuals. I see many individuals who come forward with very good intentions, but again, it requires some inward focus, some research, discernment, and to really reach a better place. Woke left and the universities of the West have, it seems, such hatred for their own culture and for civilization itself. They align with those who are in opposition with their very own ideals of equality. They seem to align with movements and people who wish to destroy civilization. So again, we're seeing this is one very strong example of inversions and distortions. And it's an example of the fragmentation of the culture and the fragmentation of civilization. It comes together with a moral degradation, and it's a type of civilizational crisis. So now there's a potential and a possibility, having said all this, to align with a better path, to be discerning, to release the hatred, to release aggression, and to choose a path that is released of fear. This is very, very important. Releasing the fear and aligning with love, with wisdom, and with peace. And this is the way forward to that more positive direction, that pathway to the shift to a new way, a new civilization. So as mentioned, for the shift to take place, the truth is being revealed. And this is also happening through the inversions and distortions. And we see literally people saying black is white, white is black, complete inversions, you know, the sky is down, the ground is up, you know. And part of this is an alignment with narcissism, with tremendous selfishness, with nihilism, with destruction. And what we need to do is to turn that around and to shift into love, unity, compassion. This is very, very important. Humanity is being tested very strongly at this time, and who people really are, who people really truly are at their core, underneath the mask, underneath the veils, it's all being revealed. Test individually as well. You know, in a sense, we are proving to ourselves, within ourselves, who we really are. So it's a very, it's a time of tremendous potential as well. Okay, so there can be a sense of joy in that we're being given really great opportunity here. So we see this bifurcation, this split, and it's also a spiritual split into different groups. I'm going to just loosely say approximately 2 groups, but there are really more. But just to describe it in quite simple terms, it's not simple, but I just want to use it for simplicity. There are those who are heading more towards the light and those who are heading more towards the dark. And these are different paths. I do believe this. And of course, we want to take that path to the light, to the ascension, and to, you know, the positive shift to a new earth. People talk about timelines, but it's really a dimensional shift. This experience can feel like the worst possible timeline. It's really a dimensional shift, but it can feel like the worst possible timeline for humanity at the moment because there's so much turmoil. As we experience lies, propaganda, violence, and wars unfolding, but ultimately, I truly believe, things will be for the good. Again, I say I'm a believer. I'm sure that everything will end well, and the path will be a path that will lead to like a new dimension, okay, a shift. It will go in a positive direction, even if times are hard, and even if the ride is a rough ride. We will get there. We will get there together, and ultimately all move into the light in the end. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you listening. Please remember to subscribe, as it really helps to support my channel, and it helps this message, a very positive message, I think, to grow and to spread. Please also comment, let me know what you think. I'm open to questions, I'm open to ideas. I'm also open to, you know, creating content based on questions that people are asking. Please engage. It's very important. The community is important. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you here again.